welcome to World War G. I'm Troy.
Troy is literally one of a kind. He's a goblin or a hobbit or a kobold, which is a type of gremlin.
I'm AJ.
AJ, what kind of name is AJ? Oh, you race cars?
Haven't heard from us in a little bit.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. That was my fault. I take the blame for that one.
It's all good.
Yeah. We got a little miscommunication there and things happened and just couldn't do it. But anyway. So, to start off the show this time, we're doing a new segment.
Yes.
And we're calling it Elevator Pitch.
Stop motorboating your dad and elevator pitch me. Elevator pitch me.
Now, if you're unfamiliar, an elevator pitch is basically, let's say you're a screenwriter in Hollywood and you're in an elevator.
And you have like an executive or some sort of producer happens to be like next to you.
And you're like, I got a story. You're like, and he's like, great. You have until I get to my floor to tell me.
Right. And executives, they are up on very high floors.
Yeah.
So, you got like 3 minutes.
Yeah. So we thought it might be fun.
I think at that point, I would probably like hit every floor. You know what I mean? Like
just push all the buttons.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we thought it might be fun to take a popular property and do an elevator pitch for maybe a prequel or a sequel.
Yes, exactly. Give us the cast and crew, break down the plot, and yeah.
Yeah.
And this kind of comes from, at least this one stems from one of our stories that we'll be doing in This Week in Geek later on.
Yeah, so basically, Harrison Ford's been in the news lately. Indiana Jones been in the news lately.
With this untitled 5th movie. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we thought, okay, let's do an elevator pitch for our first one, a prequel to Indiana Jones. Now, we know we've seen kind of young Indy before.
Right.
In a third one, but this is
an actual full story. Full-length story of just him as a younger guy.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so here's our pitch, our elevator pitch for Indiana Jones and the Valley of the Kings. So we know that Indiana
That's a great
Jones.
Title.
It is.
Yeah.
You came up. I gotta give you props for that one. You came up for that one. So the year is early 1920s. 22, 23.
Mm-hmm.
And a young Indiana Jones, who's also in his early 20s,
played by
Nick Jonas.
If you go back and watch the first Jumanji movie, you definitely see glimpses of Indy for sure. Like he's got the jacket, he's got the look.
And the reason we picked Nick Jonas is because he can act. He's a name to bring people in. He can do the action stuff, and he can do the comedy.
Right.
So, yeah. So, young Indy, played by Nick Jonas. He is shipped off to Britain by his father to intern for Howard Carter, famed archaeologist Howard Carter.
If you're unfamiliar with Howard Carter, he is the gentleman that is given credit for discovering King Tut.
Mm-hmm.
Played by Tom Selleck.
Played by Tom Selleck.
Yes. They look pretty identical, dude. Like, this is a spot-on casting.
Yeah. So, Indy, his life's kind of been nowhere. He's not really doing anything. So, his father thinks that sending him off to Howard is going to give him more structure in his life.
Howard owes his father a favor, so that's why he's inclined to accept this offer.
Now, when he goes over to England, he discovers that Howard has another intern by the name of Marion Ravenwood, played by Lily James.
Now, she's like a star pupil of Howard's, and she, she's kind of like, she toes the line.
She's a straight arrow. She's a rule follower.
Yes.
Top of the class, basically.
Right.
So they end up going to Egypt because Howard has this one last dig he's going to do. He's got this tip on where maybe this famed tomb of King Tut is.
And now, initially, Howard had funding from the college, from Oxford, we were thinking, right? Or somewhere. But the funds have kind of run dry. So Howard, borrows some money on good faith that they're going to be able to find this tomb.
Right.
And the riches and the accolades and claim and everything else that follows.
Right. So they're heading off to Egypt, and this whole time we're seeing that Marion has these notebooks, these papers. She's constantly scrolling stuff down.
Right.
She's basically researching and reading between the lines.
Indy isn't in love with like archaeology and that stuff yet.
Indy couldn't care less.
Right.
But he's attracted to her.
Right.
So they get to Egypt. You know, Howard has him doing all these mundane things like getting him water and
digging stuff and yeah.
And again, Indy couldn't care less. Well, all this time he's seeing that Marion is working on these papers and he's always scrolling stuff down. So he goes over to her and he's like,
"Hey, why do you love this so much?"
And this is like, think of it takes place at nighttime, right?
Yeah.
So she's like, "Okay, here, I'll show you."
Right.
So she takes him to, what do we say, maybe like another dig site or something like that. Starts showing him these old pieces. Starts explaining the history of these old pieces. Like, look how incredible these are. Like this is ancient history. Like these people need to be remembered.
You're right.
These people want to be remembered.
Yeah.
And so then they have this kind of little romantic moment. It's at night. They're on the stars. We get a little kiss in which Indy goes, "I love archaeology." Which kicks off his love for archaeology.
Yes.
You think it's the study of the pursuit of knowledge? No.
No. Women.
For a woman.
See, that's why most guys take, home ec and some of these other classes, right? It's for
True.
a woman. Yeah.
So meet women.
Yeah.
That's why we got into podcasting.
Exactly. To meet women. Shit. Oh yeah. Although I do have to say that, like, I have said that, I've got a podcast, and they are pretty smitten by that.
The GF.
Yeah.
I mean, she listens.
Yeah.
And she's one of our patrons, but she's like, yeah, okay, that's cool.
I'm glad you have an outlet.
Yeah.
So she doesn't have to hear all this boring shit.
Yeah. I'm glad you're being creative.
Yeah.
Anyway. So they continued working for Howard Carter. He continues to be kind of a dick. And we find out that Howard has been borrowing money from a bunch of other seedy organizations.
Right, exactly.
And he's in debt.
Like majorly. Yeah.
Majorly.
Yeah.
So what ends up happening is they actually do find this tomb. And Howard's all of a sudden like, "Oh, this is it. This is King Tut's tomb. We found it.
This is the direction we're going."
Mm-hmm. And the whole time, Marion's behind him like, "No, this isn't the right tomb.
Right.
I promise you, this isn't the tomb.
Yeah.
According to all this research, this isn't the one." And he's like, "Ah, shut up, girl."
Yeah.
Right? Because it's the 20s.
Yeah,
right? Dames don't know what they're talking about. Except he's British, but anyway.
Yeah.
And what happens is once they open this tomb, you see, like, I don't know, maybe like a mist or a smoke or something go out.
We do have to have kind of Indy has always been known for having like a supernatural element to things. Yeah.
So all of a sudden, people on Howard's team start to die.
But he sees all this gold and all this stuff in the tomb, so they start taking it out.
Mm-hmm.
He's able to pay off these debts.
Yeah. So he doesn't care if people are dying. He's being callous, being more of a dick. And he's just bringing all this gold and stuff out. He's convinced that they found King Tut's tomb. Well, Indy and Marion kind of escape all that. And Marion goes, "I promise you, come with me. I know where the real tomb is."
Right.
So they go and they actually stumble upon King Tut's real, actual tomb.
Mm-hmm.
And they come to find out that there is one way to stop this plague that's going around, is they have to reunite the hearts of King Tut and his wife.
Because what they've actually discovered, what Howard has discovered is his wife's tomb, which, we did some digging ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Did a little research.
Yeah. And it has never been found.
Never has.
Nope. Right.
And so they discover that they see all these, because under tombs of pharaohs, you'll see all these canisters that holds all of their organs.
Yes.
Well, there's one spot that's missing.
Right.
And they discover we have to go to the other tomb, get her heart, and put it back here. That's how we end this curse.
Right.
So they basically end up they go they grab the heart. They basically have convinced Howard that this is what we have to do, and we think all of a sudden Howard's on their side. Like, okay, yeah,
Oh,
you
he's
know what?
actually
You're
on
right.
board with us. Yeah.
You're right. You're absolutely right. I've been wrong this whole time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you.
I should have listened to you.
Yep. Remember, this is Tom Selleck. Keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. Just I can picture him in the role.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
it just makes me happy. Anyway.
Yeah.
So they go. The three of them go. They put the heart canister into the hole, and you see this like wave go out through Egypt,
Which would be kind of cool. Like we were talking about this, like with the sands kind of
Mhm.
rolling back.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And all of a sudden everybody starts feeling better, and the plague starts to get lifted. But it also turns out that once you did that, King Tut's wife's tomb starts to crumble.
Mm-hmm. It's starting to fall apart.
Mhm.
Not immediately, but kind of like brick by
Yeah.
brick, stuff starts falling down.
And so you get Howard. He's like, "Oh, this, it's great. You were right. Thank you so much for help." He shoves both of them into this tunnel that connects the two tombs
Mm-hmm.
and locks them in.
Right.
So now big
Not only does Howard have the gold and stuff from the
Mhm.
one tomb, he's also got King Tut's tomb.
Yep. And now he's going to take all the credit for it.
Right.
So now the big climax of the film is Marion and Indy have got to escape this crumbling tomb.
Yes.
So, you get this, you picture the running through, you got all these stuff is falling, you got sand falling down through the ceiling,
Mm-hmm.
rocks falling everywhere. Yeah, it's very tense.
Yes.
It's a very exciting moment. Kind of reminiscent almost of when Indiana
boulder?
is
Yeah,
running
yeah.
from the boulder.
Mhm.
Yep. And there's a lot of allusions to other films.
Little nods to it.
Little nods here and there.
That it's basically the less shiny stuff, that's actually his real tomb.
The right direction to go, yeah.
Mhm. Switching out, or putting the heart in place, kind of a deal. Like the camera zooms in, so you actually see him, not necessarily make the swap, but he, puts it on there, kind of a deal.
So there's little allusions here and there.
Yeah.
So they do end up escaping the tomb. I picture them, crawling through all this sand. They look, they see Howard is there. He's in front of all, old-timey press.
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh, this is how I discovered the tomb, this blah, blah, blah." And all of a sudden, that's how Howard Carter becomes famous.
Yes.
So now Marion's like, "I can't believe this. I can't believe he won. I can't believe he actually did this." Then he go over to see Indiana, and he's like, "You know what?
I'm going to make a name for myself.
Yeah, I'm going to make a name for myself, but I'm going to be everything he's not."
Mm-hmm.
He's in it for the fame. He's in it for the greed, for the money.
Similar to what she said, I want to do it to tell these people stories, to shed some light on their stories.
He said, "What if we went off on our own? What if we started our own digs?" And
she kind of says, "Well, you need an education first,
right,
kind of a deal." So then he has to go back to college.
Right. He's like, well. Or I guess you could say something like, "Well, I've always kind of wanted to be a professor," or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of a little throwaway line to the future films,
Right.
And that is basically our elevator pitch for Indiana Jones and the Valley of the Kings. I think that's pretty good.
It is. Yeah.
I mean, obviously there's a few details we'd have to iron out.
Mm-hmm. And that's what we pay writers for.
Exactly. I think the pitch itself is solid. I think it's a cool idea.
Right. Great cast, and I'm on board. Sold.
And the timeline works really well.
Do you have okay, so the one other thing, we've got the story, we've got the cast. Which studio would you like to see produce this movie? That's the third other element to complete this trifecta.
Which ones have done Indiana Jones? Warner Brothers? I want to say it's Warner Brothers. It's either Warner Brothers or Paramount. Indiana Jones. Or is it 20th Century Fox? Because if it's 20th Century Fox, it's now Disney. Indiana Jones movie studio. Yeah, it's currently owned by Walt Disney.
Oh, geez. All right.
So yeah, it'd go through Disney. Which, hey, fine.
I'm all about getting that Disney money.
Yeah,
They've got the budget for it. It would actually look pretty cool.
Yeah, so Indiana Jones was owned by Lucasfilm.
Okay.
So I think when Disney bought Star Wars, they also bought Indiana Jones. I think
That's a good purchase for
Yeah.
$4 billion.
if I'm not mistaken, I think that's what happened. Yeah. So yeah, I would go through Disney, and that I'm good with that. I'm fine with that.
It would help them, We scratch their back, they scratch ours, because we could throw in a couple of nods to the ride as well.
Sure.
If we had to.
We can throw in Easter eggs. R2D2 and C3PO are in a glyph. Pyroglyph? What are they called?
Hieroglyph.
Hieroglyph.
Yeah.
In one of the indie movies, so
That's true.
you can throw in Easter eggs.
I'm totally for it.
Why not? All right. Now let's get into This Week in Geek.
This weekend.
Geek.
So, Harrison Ford, speaking of Harrison Ford and Indiana Jones, suffered an injury on the Indiana Jones 5 set. Shooting began a month ago on the highly anticipated, still untitled sequel in the United Kingdom. According to Deadline, the severity of Ford's injury remains unknown at this time, but we do know that it was an injury to a 78-year-old actor.
Yeah.
His shoulder.
Yeah.
Warner Brothers and Disney, they're kind of keeping it under wraps, but they're going on with production. That's what they said. They're going to continue on with other stuff that they can do, and then kind of come back to Harrison's scenes.
And I've also heard that it was a rehearsal. He was rehearsing a punch.
Yeah.
And he threw out his shoulder. Why? Because he's 78. Like, Harrison, get a stunt double, man.
Right, yeah. You don't even need to practice this stuff.
I mean, don't you remember what happened? Did you learn nothing from the Force Awakens set when your ankle got crushed by the Millennium Falcon?
Yeah. But at the same time, I do appreciate that he's still in it.
Sure.
That he's still doing it. Although, doesn't he have some animosity? And, he had some reservations to begin with, wanting to do this film?
I know he did with Han Solo, but he came back for that.
Right.
I think what he's doing is he's just kind of going through, it seems like just putting bows on all of his characters.
Right. Oh, does that mean Indy's gonna die? Oh, man.
Maybe he'll get shoved off a bridge like Han Solo did.
As long as it's as good of a movie as Logan is, I'm cool with it. You know what I mean? That kind of put a nice bow on Hugh Jackman's character.
Yeah.
So, if they do a fine job with it, I guess I'll be okay with Indy passing the torch.
Sorry, my microphone's acting up. It has a mind of its own. Okay. Yeah. I don't know, Harrison. Maybe it's time to
retire.
After this, let's hang up the jacket and the fedora and let's retire.
What would you even do at that age?
I would say, hey, you can go fly his planes, but he keeps crashing those.
Are there any other bows that he...
So stay home, Harrison.
Put a nice Afghan on.
And just stay home.
Drink some hot cocoa.
Please. Get yourself some hot tea, your slippers, the newspaper, and just stay home.
But are there any other bows that he needs to put on any of his characters?
I don't know. We could make Air Force 2.
I think those are the biggest franchises, Indiana Jones and Star Wars, right?
Yeah. And he did the one with Blade Runner.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
So he kind of ended that one too.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think there's any.
other ones that...
No, I don't think so. Could do The Fugitive too. Bring back just two grumpy actors, Harrison Ford and Tommy Lee Jones, just being grumpy at each other. Okay. So, I don't know why, but Anna Paquin has been talking about Hugh Jackman and their time on set for X-Men.
Okay.
Which was 21 years ago.
Right.
So, so he's talking about kind of her scenes with Hugh Jackman, because they had a bunch of scenes together. And he said that in that first one, he was really put through the ringer throughout the production. She says, he got put through the ringer on that first one and never ever complained. It's minus 40 degrees, and he's being dropped off some building onto his back over and over and over again. And still has all the time in the world to be a nice, normal person. Paquin also shared a somewhat amusing story about assisting Jackman with his character's iconic cigar prop. I did have to pick cigar out of his teeth because he couldn't do it with his claws without causing personal damage. Yeah, so for some reason, they've been asking Anna Paquin about X-Men.
Is that because she might be in the new X-Men movie?
I don't think so. I think it was, I think they were just asking, she was on, let's see, Sirius XM's The Just Kegel Show. And you probably just asked her, hey, what was it like working with Hugh Jackman? And I bet that was probably it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's nice to know. And ever since I saw the first X-Men movie, I thought, I like this Hugh Jackman guy.
Yeah.
And I've been following his career ever since.
Right.
I've seen most of his films. And it's good to know that he seems like a nice, normal dude. And
Even
apparently he is.
Even 20-something years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad to hear it that he didn't Man, that would be rough. He would probably be one of the few characters or actors that I would hate to hear some sort of a scandal from. That'd just be
like him or Tom Hanks.
Mm-hmm.
Or,
Yeah.
But by all accounts, Hugh Jackman is just like the nicest dude.
So from X-Men over to Marvel. Marvel just took a huge step in the LGBTQ plus representation thanks to a small moment in the latest episode of Loki. Have you seen all three of them
I
so
have.
far? Okay.
Yep.
Me as well. I am thoroughly enjoying this without giving any... I'm in it for the long haul. I did think it was kind of crazy how he was able to do something, when the whole city's falling apart, that he flips it back, but I think it's because he does have one of those stones with him.
I thought, is that one of his powers?
No.
Like, I didn't think so.
No.
Yeah.
He's got a time stone. From that first one, it looked like he'd grabbed one of those. I think it was a green stone.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what I'm thinking. But that's why he wasn't in such a hurry or worried about this city collapsing. He's just like, we'll make it. We got time. That's what I'm thinking at least. But
I didn't even think about that. That's good.
Well, because they were just in that drawer, right? A shit ton of.
Right. There's a drawer full of Infinity Stones.
Yeah. Okay. So, in a conversation between Loki and Sylvie, I guess, the god of mischief reveals that he was with a bit of both when he was asked previously about whether he has been with princess or princesses during his time in Asgard.
Yeah.
Which, I mean...
bisexual.
Yeah. Which Loki, I always kind of figured that was the case with him.
I want to say that was talked about in the comics as well.
Mm-hmm.
Though I think there were some actuallys in some of the comments I read. It was he's actually more pansexual because he just likes to be with everybody, and he's even turned into animals and
yeah.
sex with animals. So Yeah.
Is there a new sexuality for that? Or is that still considered like classified
Turning
as
into
pan?
animals? I don't think so.
Bear sex? I don't know. Or animals? I don't know.
Beast. Well, I was gonna say bestiality, but
That's already beast sex. I don't
know.
know. But no, that's pretty cool. I also kind of like thought that Captain Marvel, they might have been alluding to that as well with her film, right?
Yeah.
Her best friend kind of a deal.
Yeah.
That perhaps that he's like more pan or bisexual, and then that she's like more lesbian.
Yeah.
But it said in the conversation, let's see. This makes Loki the first officially out and confirmed LGBTQ plus main character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Which I'm all totally for, like representation.
Great.
That's pretty cool. I think that, man, can we talk a little bit more about Loki, like the first couple episodes, or do we?
Yeah. No, we're good.
Okay. So spoilers for people that haven't like seen it. I really liked the whole setup. At first, I wasn't like completely on board when I thought that he was going to be chasing himself.
Yeah.
And I was just like, well, that's kind of lame. And she's got some different abilities that were kind of cool. And I even was vibing when they were on that train. It kind of reminded me of like well, it wasn't really a train, that machine that's moving along.
Yeah.
Kind of reminded me of like a Snowpiercer-esque kind of a thing.
I can see that.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm totally on board with this. How many episodes have they said that they're going to do? Is it going to be like about 6 or 8?
I want to say 6. Yeah.
So once they do find a way to actually get on board, the whole reason that they're picking these things is because like everybody gets killed, right? But this is going to change everything. And what's her deal? What's her reason for like sending all these explosions and stuff elsewhere, just to disrupt this whole time?
Just to basically disrupt pretty much all of time. I think that was her plan.
Okay.
Destroy the Time Lords, and
because the Time Lords, they've convinced these other people that are working for them that this is like the way kind of a deal. But that's not the case, because they were originally regular people to begin with, right?
Right, which we just found out.
Right.
Yeah, because they thought originally all these people are thinking that, they were created by the Time Lords, and like, no, these were people that were living, and now they're all variants, and now they're working for the time people.
So are they going after, will this kind of set up a bigger threat to the MCU with these Time Lords? Because we're also getting the multiverse with Doctor Strange and all these like Spider-Man.
And I think that's what it's setting up.
Okay.
Now that we know that that the manipulation of time is a thing in the MCU, and there are Time Lords supposedly.
Right. We can have these different, like, there was like a time where this individual, well, because they're gonna have to do that with like Black Panther, and they've even talked about that, that in a different timeline somebody else is ruling, Wakanda. And they've kind of like, because they're not even gonna like touch Chad's like his character,
right? No, though. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I think that's what's gonna, the repercussion in the MCU. That's what it's gonna be, is like, knowing that there is all these multiverses and different timelines, and I think that'll be the future of the MCU.
Because then you're able to have like all these different unique random stories, what if, Spider-Man, did this, or what if this?
And that's how you can introduce like the Fantastic Four and the X-Men and all these other.
What if there was a universe where like Marvel, and the X-Men, like they fought each other, kind of a deal, like they've done in the comics. Yeah. That'll be kind of interesting, but like, I feel like they still need a big bad. Is it going to be those Time Lords?
I don't think so. I think,
because then it seems like it's going to be like more sporadic and just random, like one-off films, right? Rather than like a collective MCU universe. Well, I guess you.
Yeah, I've heard maybe Kang the Conqueror might be the new big bad. So, here's where you can find us. You can go to patreon.com/WorldWarG to hear our full episodes. Sign up for $1 a month. Or you can go to worldwarg.podbean.com and listen to our 30-minute episodes.
Or halfisodes.
Halfisodes, as we call them. You can go to facebook.com/worldwarg. We're always doing stuff over there, always posting stuff. You can find our merchandise at tpublic.com. You can also email us anytime.
Day or night.
At worldwargpod@gmail.com. So, this has been World War G. That has been AJ.
That has been Troy.
Stay a geek, my friends.
Ciao.
Ciao. Ciao, Bella. Our accents were better than theirs sometimes.